So how we doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm drained. I got no energy, but God's good, So we're gonna see how this goes. I got it.
A cup of coffee, that could be in.
Man, nah. My ADHD says, nah, you're gonna go to bed, so can't do that. So as I was preparing this, even before I got really deep into it, I was like, oh, God's gonna hit me over with a brick, because I've been struggling with this myself. But the title of my message today is Take a Step. I want to open up with an illustration, which I thought was fascinating. So from time to time, lobsters have to leave their shells in order to grow. They need the shell to protect them from being torn apart, yet when they grow, the old shell must be abandoned. If they did not abandon it, the old shell would soon become their prison and finally their casket. The tricky part for the lobster is the brief period of time between when the old shell is discarded and the new one is formed. During that terribly vulnerable period, the transition must be scary to the lobster. Currents gleefully cartwheel them from coral to kelp. Hungry schools of fish are ready to make them a part of their food chain. For a while, at least, that old shell must look pretty good. We're not so different from lobsters. The change in growing must sometimes shed our shells, a structure or a framework we've depended on. Discipleship means being so committed to Christ that when he bids us to follow, we will change, risk, grow, and leave our shells behind. So our passage today is found in the books of Matthew, Mark, and John, but we're going to focus on the account in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33, because it has something the other two don't have. Matthew records Peter's response to seeing Jesus walking on the water. And prior to this passage, we see the story of the feeding of the 5,000. We see a large group of people who followed Jesus because they had seen his miraculous signs and were amazed. When Jesus saw all the people, he turned to his disciples, and after conversing with them and figuring things out, they finally found 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish to figure out how we were going to feed these people. Jesus takes the food, feeds everyone there, eating as much as they want, and they end up with 12 baskets left over. And now we come to our passage in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33, and it says this. Immediately after this, the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. After sending them home, he went up to the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost." But Jesus spoke to them at once. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Take courage, I am here." Then Peter called to him, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water." "Yes, come," Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. "You have so little faith," Jesus said. "Why did you doubt me?" When they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshiped him. "You really are the Son of God," they exclaimed. Something to consider here is that this body of water, the Sea of Galilee, is actually the same one that Jesus had calmed the storm back in Matthew 8. When he was asleep and he had challenged the disciples' faith then. And I find it funny how often Jesus keeps using the same body of water to teach the disciples about faith. So we see Jesus sends the disciples off to the boat while he sends the others away after feeding of the 5,000. In John, we see the account says that the people who witnessed the miracle are in a hurry to force Jesus to be their king. John 6:14 and 15 says, when the people saw him to do this miraculous sign, the feeding of the 5,000, they exclaimed, "Surely he is a prophet we have been expecting." When Jesus saw that they were ready to force him to be their king, he slipped away to the hills by himself. Jesus, knowing it's not time for him to reveal himself yet, slips away to spend time with the Father. This man's been teaching, preaching, performing miracles. It's no wonder this would drive him to spend some one-on-one time with his Father. And when I read this, I was confused as to why Jesus left the disciples on their own. But there is a popular view on this. So Jesus told the disciples to go for Possibly two reasons. One, sending them away cleared them of the chaos that is the people trying to force Jesus to be king. And two, it allows the disciples to be removed from a situation where they could reveal too much about Jesus before it's time. And this is not to say that this is exactly why Jesus did what he did, nor does it change the significance of what we're going to dive into today. But it's really cool, I think, to consider the possibilities in these little details to understand passages and see the broader picture and how we get to where we are. Another thing to consider is how long Jesus was by himself while the disciples were on the boat. Because we see night fell as Jesus was by himself in verse 23. But then we see Jesus doesn't make his way towards the disciples till around 3 a.m. This dude was by himself for hours while the disciples were struggling against the storm during this time. Now, the thing about the Sea of Galilee is it was known for its sudden storms. So the fact that the storms could have started right when the disciples left the shore, and they could have started right before Jesus showed up. Who knows? But it's still crazy to consider how fast it can happen. I think about the storms on the Sea of Galilee like when we're going about our day, it's really good, really chill. We're at work. I work with kids. Lord help me. But kids are doing great. One kid all of a sudden has a meltdown. And it's like, dude, I got 3 hours left. Can you just chill for 3 more hours? And then just throws a wrench in your day. And now we have to figure out, okay, how am I going to maneuver through this event that just happened out of nowhere and not let it ruin my day? I would think that's kind of how the disciples are responding to the storms on the Sea of Galilee. So Jesus goes by himself to pray and the disciples are stuck in a storm. What a start. Isn't it great? Jesus comes down and begins walking toward them on the water. When the disciples see him, they think he's a ghost. However, Jesus reassures them it's him and he's very real. Peter then gives somewhat of a conditional statement when he says, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. See, Peter, recognizing who Jesus is and the power he has, was like, tell me to come to you if it's really you. I know the power that Jesus possesses. If you are Jesus, show me. So Jesus told Peter to come, and Peter begins walking on the water. Something that's interesting here and to consider is that Peter was a fisherman, right? He knows the dangers of the water, what's in the water, and what storms can do to a boat. So the fact that he's like, hey, tell me to walk. I know that these storms have torn apart boats, but I'm going to walk in this towards you if it's really you. That's crazy. I'm like, no, thank you. The boat barely is keeping me safe. I'm not stepping out of it. We then see Peter take some steps, but then when he focuses so much on the storm, he begins to sink. Jesus pulls him out, challenging his faith and asking him why he doubted. When Jesus gets into the boat, the storm ceases. The disciples recognize him as the Son of God, and they make their way to their destination. My first point is step out of the boat. See, the boat, for illustration purposes for this sermon, the boat in this case is our safe place. It's, hey, me and Jesus are good. Everything's calm. Nothing's going wrong. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. To step out of the boat means we walk in faith out of our safe place towards something God is calling us to. When we're in our safe place, it's really hard to be pushed to grow because we're so comfortable and we're just chilling with what we've always done and not really getting out of the way to do anything different. However, more times than not, we're actually called out of the boat to step into something we may have no idea what's going on or what it's going to look like. And the uncertainties can be terrifying. They can cause us to become paralyzed because we must now consider the pros and cons of making the move and staying where we are. Let's dive into Peter's situation to break it down. So after Jesus reassured him he wasn't a ghost and it was him, Peter gives Jesus an opportunity of assurance. This was in no way Peter challenging Jesus. In fact, when we read this verse, it's better understood as a bold request in response to the recognition of Jesus being who he is. So in other words, we can read verse 28 kind of like Peter saying, since it's you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. The fact of fishermen who understood the dangers of the water and what they can do to a boat, let alone a human being, decided to take Jesus up on his offer to step out of the boat is wild. See, every season is a new boat. New routines are established. New habits are formed because we've been in it for so long and we have to adapt and we've gotten the hang of it all. It's typically at this point that we get comfortable, get into a rhythm, and it can make it hard for us to move from where we are. Not necessarily just physically, but spiritually and emotionally as well. The job is perfect. I make this much money a year. I have all the benefits. I'm not struggling to make ends meet. The relationships that I've established, the community I have here is incredible. I don't have to worry about anything because I know I have a community that will back me up and come alongside me. See, these along with other things are great. Don't get me wrong, but we come to a point in our season when we become so comfortable that we don't want to move, because if we move, we think I might mess up all of this that I've established. Even if the person prompting us to move is God. When we choose to stay in our boat, when God is calling us out into something new, we tell God what he has provided in this season, he can't provide if he moves us on. God, you've established such a perfect season for me. I'm finally where I want to be. Everything is in order. God responds, yeah, but you become too comfortable because when I called you out of the season, you chose to stay. Every season has a ceiling. Once we reach it, we can't grow anymore like the lobster in its shell. Our shell is too small now. We must move out and move on. I've used this illustration before. I will use it again till the day I die. I love this one. When I went to college, President Kim, it was one of my favorite classes. He was teaching us about building up leaders. All right. So he gave us this real life example. He had someone working for him in student life and loved this person. They did an amazing job. He had to go up to this person and say, hey, you need to move on. Why? He told them, you have literally reached your potential here. I cannot help you grow anymore. God is moving you on. It wasn't the fact that they were doing anything wrong. It wasn't the fact that anything was bad. It was just, hey, you've reached your ceiling. This season is over. And now, unfortunately, I don't like to do this, but God's like, hey, you got to let them go because I'm trying to do something new in them. See, we're going to have people in the boat with us, and that's going to have a huge impact on us as well. People are going to cheer us on as we step out of the boat, and people are going to question our actions. However, when we follow Jesus and lean on godly counsel, we get to see God work regardless of the opposition. See, that individual had President Kim in their boat with them. And when he realized they needed a new boat, he encouraged them to move on because what God was doing in and through them. No boat is greater or lesser than others. Each boat is simply a different season for us. Things are going to look different. It's not a bad thing. To remain obedient and watch God work, we got to be willing to take that first step out of the boat in faith, regardless of what we think or are worrying about, because when God says go, he's got it. He's going to provide, just like he did when you stepped into the boat you're in now. It's a full circle. So the first point is to step out of the boat. But our next point doesn't stop there. We got to keep walking. If we look at Peter, he took a step out of the boat, but he didn't stop there. This man was walking, taking one step after another. Matthew 14:28 and 29 says, then Peter called to him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. Yes, come, Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. Anybody like swimming? Anybody like getting in water, even if it's just sitting in it? There we go. Perfect. How about getting used to the temperature of the water? Typically, we might dip our foot in, maybe get a splash or two so we can get used to the temperature. Investigate the damage that's about to take place. How cold am I going to get? How long is the pain of the cold going to last? The issue with this, at least from my experience, is the more we test the water, the more we overthink and procrastinate getting in all the way. I'll usually end up taking slow steps into the water from a ladder or the steps just to keep going because I know if I stop, I'm not going in. I got to full send it or I'm just going to back out and not end up getting in water because I don't want to go through that pain of being cold. We tend to do this a lot when God calls us to move and step out of the boat and keep going. We may take that first step, test it, and see if we want to keep going. But if we don't like it, we retreat back into the boat and remain stagnant. I think too often we look at Peter and think, this fool fell in. He didn't do what he was supposed to. He wasn't focused on Jesus. He fell into the water and Jesus doubted his faith. I want to challenge us with something. Have we even taken that first step and another and another? We're out here beating up on Peter, but he kept going, walking toward Jesus before he fell. How many of us won't even step out of the boat? We're laughing at Peter walking out of his boat and falling, and we're stuck inside of our own boat. You're an idiot. As we're standing in our own comfort, at least Peter's walking out towards Jesus trying.
Amen.
Peter literally walked on water. How long? Who cares? He was walking on water toward Jesus because he took the initial step of faith out of the boat and he kept going. It only takes one step for us to begin moving in the right direction. One decision for us to be on the path God has planned out for us. One move for us to see God go off and do things greater than we could have ever dreamed or imagined. However, we must take that initial step and we got to keep going with it. We can't take that step, say, no, I don't like it, and step back into our boat. That's not being obedient. That's not moving towards Jesus. The last point is this. Focus on Jesus. So we step out of the boat, then we got to keep going. But how do we keep going? Why are we going? What is going to be the driving force of our going? Lots of going. We must focus on Jesus if we're going to keep moving forward, because if we focus on anything or anyone else, we will continue to fall flat on our face and miss out on so much. Finding joy in each season will only ever be a dream if we don't keep Jesus at the center. I'm not saying we won't fall. I'm not saying we're not going to have doubts. I'm not saying things aren't going to get tough. But when that happens, if we're so focused on Jesus, it's not going to matter. How honest and real can I be with you guys? This season sucked so far. I have been struggling so much. I've had senioritis this season. I'm like, God, where's the next season? I don't like this one. I don't like my boat. Can I get a new one? Can I get like a cruise ship? I got this little rinky-dink canoe, bro. Like, I want my cruise ship. It's been really hard because I'm focusing so much on things that I want it to look like. I'm focusing on things where I'm like, hey, I want it this way. You're doing it like this, or I can't even see you doing anything. I want to know what's going on. Well, why do I bring this up? When we step out of the boat and we start walking, if we aren't focused on Jesus, we're going to fall like Peter, especially when things aren't looking the way that we want them to. We see what happened to Peter when he shifted his focus. Matthew 14:30, but when he saw the strong wind in the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. Why did Peter sink? He saw the strong wind and waves, which caused him to be filled with fear. He went from focusing on Jesus to focusing on the storm around him. What's funny is a way a commentary put it. It was not the violence of the winds nor the raging of the waves which endangered his life, but his littleness of faith. When I read that, I think of Psalm 23, right? Even though I walk through the darkest valley, you make a table in the presence of my enemies. If God didn't want us to go into the dark places, I don't think David would have wrote that.
Right.
I'm just saying.
That's true.
I don't think God intended us to be in our little comfort church bubble. I'm just a thought.
No, it happened.
You know why I become so frustrated in this season? The reason why this season feels the way it does is because my focus has shifted from knowing who God is and that He's called me here to, you're not doing what I wanted you to do. And even if you are, it's not happening how I want it to happen. God hit me with 2 bricks that have stuck with me since. And I feel led to share that with you. So,
Awesome.
I think it can apply to all of us. It's like, you sure, God? It's a little personal. But I think it applies to all of us as a whole. The first one is, stop coming to me with your plans and just follow me. I think a lot of the time we come to Jesus with our plans saying, hey, here's my agenda. Here you go. Do it. It's like, we're going up to McDonald's, bro. He's not our waiter. Like, no. We come to Jesus. He's going to be like, hey, I got you, bro. I got a plan for you. He's like our strength and conditioning coach. You don't come to a strength and conditioning coach saying, hey, here's my workout plan. You come to a strength and conditioning coach and he says, here's what I got for you. These are your goals. This is going to help you best work in your sport of choice. That's more like who God is. He's not someone we come to with our order and say, hey, I want this well done. First off, why are you getting it well done? Secondly, he's not a waiter. The second one was this. This one hurt too. God was like, you don't trust me with the dreams that I've given you.
Oh, preach it.
I was like, oh, shoot. I was like, when I was prepping this, I was like, oh, God, you're going to hit me, aren't you? And of course, what did he do? He hit me with the revolving door. He's told me this a couple times already, and then he told me again. I was like, that hurt just as much as the first time. The dreams and desires that we have, not talking about the sinful nature, but we're talking about like the godly dreams and desires that we have come from him. So who better to trust, have those come to fruition than the one who gave them to us?
Right.
What does this tell me? What do both of these things tell me? God's working, God's moving, but I need to chill out and trust that the dreams he's given me is going to be taken care of. Again, who better to trust than him, the one who gave them to us? Just follow him, be obedient, and let God take care of the rest. The reality is, who or what we focus on is going to dictate how we respond and live, because if we think everything sucks, which I found myself there a couple times, I won't lie, we're going to have a hard time finding joy in anything. It applies the other way too, though. If we think everything is perfect and don't want anything to change, it's going to be hard for us to move and embrace change when God presents it. If we lose sight of who is in control and decide to focus on everything else, then we're going to we're going to fail to see the full picture every single time. It's really funny too, because we're out here looking at people around us, judging them for not making moves when God is calling us to move. And we're so focused on everyone else and the uncertainties. We're in our boat looking at them like, you're an idiot, but we're also in our boat. Who are you to judge? Right?
Right.
So this is great. We got to take a step. We got to keep walking, and we got to focus on Jesus. Sounds like the most basic Bible following Jesus 101 I've ever heard, because it is.
Right.
It's bringing it all down to the foundation of what it means to live a life bringing glory to God. We will never be able to walk in obedience if we can't take a step out of the boat and keep going. We spoke about it earlier. We can become so comfortable in our boat that we don't want to move when God calls us to, because we like the way we have everything set up. We like the comfort of familiarity. Sorry to tell us this. God has not called us to be comfortable. Jesus called Peter out of the boat into a storm. If Jesus didn't want us to be uncomfortable, he would have looked at Peter and said, are you an idiot? Are you crazy? I'm not going to call you out into the storm. I want you to stay in your little safe boat. No. Jesus said, come here. Walk on the water. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm convinced that God can do the most when we are the most uncomfortable, because we are so out of our element. We must rely on him to get us through. I don't like public speaking. God has a sense of humor. I can't tell you one time I'm not nervous coming up here, because I know that what I'm doing is so much greater than me. I think that's the same thing. If we don't become uncomfortable, we become so comfortable that we have, nope, I'm going to do it like this, because I've always done it this way. When God's trying to do something new.
Yes.
And he's not going to be able to do anything new. When we have our little cookie cutter, God's going to do it like this. So here's some questions to consider. What step is God asking you to take? Is it applying to a position? Is it investing in someone, whether financially, emotionally, maybe with your time? This one hit me too. Has God gifted you in a way that you've been avoiding for a long time because you became too comfortable not using it, and now's the time to do it, or watch God use someone else? I don't know about you, but I'm done staying on the sidelines. I don't want to sit on the bench like in high school playing football, even though I enjoyed it. Your boy was a bench warmer. It's okay. And watch everyone else have fun. Watch everyone else be used by God. Be like, that could have been me. What is causing hesitation in taking that step? Man, it's too hard. There's too many things that I don't know if I want to plow through that. I don't know if I want to get, past all the hard times. I just wanted the easy route. Is it worrying about what people might think? I got some friends. They might look at me funny. They might look at me sideways if I, take a position that pays less because God's telling me to. Be like, what are you doing? Why are you taking a position that pays less if you don't have all the benefits, or you're not making this much a year? You were in such a great spot. Yeah, but I wasn't where God wanted me. Is it worrying about the potential downsides? What are the things you're losing? Are you scared to fail? That is one of my biggest fears, is failure. But, as the cliche thing goes, you miss all the shots you don't take, right? The last question, what are you focusing on? Are you too focused on your finances? I've caught myself there. Are you focused on job security? Call me crazy. You get laid off. It's not like God's going to be like, all right, you're done. You don't get a job. You got laid off. You screwed up. No, what? I got laid off, bro. It wasn't my fault. God's going to protect you guys. Come on. God's going to provide another opportunity. Maybe being laid off was actually God looking out. Be like, hey, no, I'm trying to move you this way. Maybe, little sail up, little wind. Hey, I'm going to push your boat this way, go this way. You know what I'm saying? Are we focused on the approval of others? Do we want people to like us? I struggle with that. I'll raise my hand. I'm so concerned about what people think. And you know how much that affects God using us? Because we're like, you know what? I'll step this way. I'll do this for you. That's fine. People won't look at me sideways, but I'm not going to go over here. That's a little too weird for some people. Here's the conclusion. We are all in different boats in this season. Maybe some of us are in similar boats. But when God calls us out of our boat, are we going to be obedient and follow? Or are we going to stay in our comfort and decline the offer to be a part of something incredible? We need to get out of our boat. We need to keep walking. And we need to focus on Jesus. Yes. Are we going to fall at times? For sure. It's a part of life. Are we going to fail? Yes, but we're going to learn from those. God's going to use it to develop us, to build us up. He's not going to look at us and say, you're an idiot. He's going to be like, hey, this is how we messed up. This is what happened. Let's learn from that and keep moving on. God is right there to pick us back up and help us keep going. Don't allow the uncertainties of this life be the reason you miss out on watching God go off in and through you. God, I thank you and I praise you for an opportunity to gather. I thank you that we have the freedom to dive into your word the way that we do. But Father, I pray that we wouldn't just hear it. I pray that we wouldn't just be like, woohoo, let's go, Jesus. But that our life would scream that, the way that we're living, the way that we're talking, and the way that we're taking steps of faith that may look odd to some people. Father, I pray that we would step out of our boat, that we would keep walking, and when we fall, man, that we would get back up and keep going. So, Father, I pray that as we leave today, that you would continue to use us, continue to guide us, and if maybe we're not taking that step, or maybe we took that step, but we're not going to keep going, and we're not focusing on you, but Father, I pray that you would convict us of that with love. Be like, hey, listen, get straight, and just help us to keep going. So we thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.